Do you really need journalism in the age of AI?
Would you imagine Edward Snowden leaking the NSA scandals to Copilot or to ChatGPT?
We definitely need an intervention to rebalance the situation, to level the playing field.
Keeping institutions accountable. AI can't do that. Roberta, do you know that I've read in the news not so long ago that in the US, 1 in 10 articles in local newspaper in the United States is actually generated by AI. In some news media, this percentage is even reaching 20%. So AI in the newsroom is already a reality. I was wondering, given that you are a journalist, you've been working as an editor-in-chief, and now you're a media economist, what you were thinking about the use of AI in the newsroom. Is it positive or is it a negative thing?
Wow, a very direct question to begin, and I would answer it can be positive. AI can bring a lot of good news for the news. But unless it kills journalism. So I want to say, first, we have to consider the economic impact. And the economic impact can be it already is very negative. It's a disruption that comes after the first digital disruption that journalism already had. So, I'm sorry, my first answer should be not good news, but before explaining a bit more why, let's ask another, maybe more fundamental question. Do you really need journalism in the age of AI?
Yeah, we do. Obviously, we do. If we think about the function of journalists in society, they have two main functions. We keep it simple because it's much more than that, but let's keep it simple. First, journalists, news media in general, are feeding the public sphere. They do. They are feeding with information in order to define the direction for a society. And they are also providing information for citizens to take some informed decision, like voting, for example. And they also act as a watchdog. That thing, they are keeping institutions accountable. And for that, here, AI can't do that.
Why?
Well, you need to find sources. You need to create a trustworthy relationship with sources. You need to interpret and understand what a human source is saying. And for example, would you imagine Edward Snowden leaking the NSA scandals to Copilot or to ChatGPT?
Yes, you are mentioning all these parts of the activity of journalism that are the core of journalism, and that unfortunately, from an economic point of view, I would say, this is why journalism, quality journalism costs and has to be financed. So this is why my first answer was a bit negative, because what happened with the digital transformation is that the platforms and the digital gatekeepers gathering the attention of the people, also they gathered the economic resources in terms of advertising. Do you know that in 2020, around the COVID times, Google, Meta, and Amazon, just 3 economic actors, controlled more than half that all the online advertising revenues, all the money coming from online advertising. Another estimate is that in few years, by 2028, the same 3 players will control more than half of all the advertising, online and offline. This is scary. This means that the main source that financed journalism for a century is gone for good. So the media were trying to monetize their audience in another way, asking people to subscribe, to pay, introducing paywalls. And this is where artificial intelligence arrives, because if an AI assistant gives me the answer without going to the source, why should I pay? So the two main sources of money for the media are jeopardized by these two steps of the digital transformation. This is scaring in my opinion, and this is what in the first period, in the short time, we have to address and to solve. Then there are a lot of philosophical and issues and ethics issues that we have to address as well, and also a lot of good things that AI can do for journalism. But first, journalism must survive.
That's true. That's true that we haven't still digested the vocational crisis that was created by social media. This is very obvious. And we have the issue of social media platform that is distributing and circulating content. But here, this is not only about surviving, this is also about the fact that we need to provide news, and AI can't create news. I brought you a little something that I found in a research paper. This is the map of scientific exploration. Mm-hmm. You have little blue, red dots that are representing some papers that were written by researchers using AI. You do have some little blue dots that are representing paper that were written without the use of AI. And this circle around represents the limit of our knowledge. You can see that most of the blue dots are very close to the limit of our knowledge, while the red dots are mostly gathered around the center, so within the perimeter of what we know. And here, the issue is that if we make a parallel between research and journalists, what we have, the role of a journalist is to create some groundbreaking news in order to fulfill the watchdog role that I was mentioning and to feed the public sphere. So here, to produce some groundbreaking news, we do need some journalists. So we will need to find a way to finance that. Otherwise, we won't have any journalists. Journalism might not be useful any longer.
Yes, okay. This graph is very useful, and I think also that is comforting in a way. There is a role for the human beings. But what I wanted to ask you is that, okay, but AI can also help journalists to do their job. As a teacher, I wanted to ask you, do you use AI, for example, to spot if your students are cheating, or to improve your lectures, or to prepare your classes?
I don't do. For spotting plagiarism, I do. But I integrate AI in my classes because I train future journalists, so they need to know how to use AI to gather sources, to identify sources, to gather some documents, to summarize some existing elements in order to go faster. But I also tend to be very blunt with them, and I tend to tell them that nobody will pay them if they're not more productive than an AI tool that is for free. Let's be honest, who wants to pay a journalist if you're doing some AI job? So here I'm coming back to what I was saying for Snowden. They need to put forward their human skills. First, they need to double check everything that AI is doing, because there might be some biases, political, cultural, gender biases, so double check. And then what they need to do is focus on their skills as a human. What do you bring in terms of network, in terms of interpersonal connection when you are interviewing, and also like structuring, building some trustworthy relationship in order to produce some groundbreaking things.
And I would add to this the fact that let's be honest, we know that trust in media is already very low. So you as a journalist, you have in a way to be trusted by your audience. And so if you use AI for something because it is useful, can improve it's a tool, you have to declare it, you have to disclose it, and you have to be fully transparent. But also, we have to ask transparency to the journalists, but transparency to the system. And here I wanted to share with you this metaphor that I read in a very interesting study for the European Parliament that has been done by a scholar called Nicola Lucchi. And this is the metaphor of the hamburger. We have a lot of food regulation because we wouldn't eat an hamburger if we didn't know which meat, which pieces of different meat are in this hamburger, where they come from, and also if all of these pieces have a safe food chain. And so we have a lot of food regulation. In the digital, in the AI technology, we don't know the composition of the hamburger. And so we have to address this because it's as important as the food regulation in a way. It is not what we eat, but it is what our brain eats. So from the point of view of the product, the final product is important, but also from another point of view, which I wanted to hear about you on this point of view. That is, we also want that this hamburger is mixed. There is not a unique taste. What do you think of this about?
This is crucial for the visibility and transparency is fundamental for diversity and inclusion of AI. If we don't have that currently, the idea is to preserve a diversity of voices. If you want a public sphere that works, you need to give a voice to everybody. Everybody needs to speak. And if you have AI centralizing the flow of news and the way of thinking, AI will be a form of centripetal force that is centralizing and homogenizing what we reach. And the idea of regulation would be to play an opposite force as a centrifugal force in order to keep a diversity of voices. If you don't have that, this is not going to work. Now, I love that metaphor of the hamburger.
Yes.
It's so good.
The problem with the diversity in the system of the large language models is that this is based on quantity, not on quality. So you have a large quantity of data that has been stolen by the tech companies to train their systems, and this is another economic issue, but also the more the language is used, the more it is present in the system. So do you remember what happened a few years ago when Iceland opened all its data to AI companies, asking them, hey, please use our language, it is for free, because otherwise it will disappear from the AI systems. So how do we do to guarantee this diversity, this pluralism? Iceland chose this way just to give the data for free. Maybe this is not the right solution.
Well, I don't have a solution for that because this is obviously a very large question that would be difficult to answer in a simple way. But I love the positive attitude. If we think in terms of philosophy, I want to, we could use a podcast that I've listened to a few weeks ago from a French journalist called Xavier Delaporte. It was about playing chess in terms of AI. And the question was about playing chess in times of AI when we know that AI is much stronger than we humans are. Is it still valid? And the journalist was referring to the work of Norbert Wiener, the father of cybernetics, so very early AI. And he was referring to the mythical figure of Golem, saying that the risk with the use of the word AI is to copy the mythical story of Golem, with first the human playing like God and creating a system that is mimicking human being. Then a moment where the human being, where the creation, like AI, notices the flaws of its creator and tries to reform it. And a third moment in which they saw that that AI can't reform human beings, so they want to destroy human being. This is something that is extremely common in our culture. Movies. Have you seen Stanley Kubrick's movie 2001, Space Odyssey?
Yeah, of course. With Hal at the end of the movie destroying the humans. And this is very typical, but okay, let's close with good news this conversation. The good news is that Hal needs humans. As I was saying, the AI systems used our data, used the media content, used everything to train the system and to start the business. But they need a flow of good, reliable data, and for the news, this means that they cannot just rely on everything that is in the internet. Everything that is in the internet is used, but the content that is put on the internet by the media professionals, by the journalists, is more useful, is more valuable. And this is why now there is an evolution. I'm not saying that the problem is solved, but now the big tech is willing to pay for something. It's like if the value of the news and of journalism is in a way recognized. Will this happen naturally? No. In my opinion, we need regulation and we need something to restore a situation in the market that is unbalanced with these big, powerful actors and media that are less powerful, but also among the media that are mainstream media that are more powerful than small and diverse media. So we definitely need an intervention to rebalance the situation, to bring more equality, to level the playing field. But the good news is that HAL needs the journalists.
Yes, let's vote HAL and let's vote for hamburger regulation.